suffocating on my own last breaths. I could only watch helplessly as my husband Nathan passionately kissed his assistant over my paralyzed body. Their staged kidnapping was nothing more than a vicious plot to steal my inheritance. Then my eyes snapped open. It was Tuesday, exactly 6 days before my murder. This time, I'm keeping my wealth and they can rot. Gasping for air, my hands clawed at the silk sheets, my chest heaving as if I was still drowning in my own blood. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. I squeezed my eyes shut, expecting the cold concrete floor of that abandoned warehouse, the echoing sound of Nathan's mocking laughter, and the burning pain of the bullet tearing through my spine. Instead, I smelled the familiar scent of lavender and expensive cedarwood. Opening my eyes, I stared at the vaulted ceiling of my Manhattan penthouse. My trembling fingers reached for the phone on the nightstand. May 10th. It was exactly 6 days before the phone call that ended my life. In my previous life, Nathan called me in a panic on May 16th. He claimed Claire, his indispensable executive assistant, had been taken by a violent syndicate due to a misunderstanding with corporate funds. The ransom was $50 million in untraceable bearer bonds. Blinded by loyalty and a desperate need to protect my husband from a scandal, I liquidated the core assets of my grandfather's empire, Sterling Enterprises, and rushed to the drop-off location. I didn't find kidnappers. I found Nathan and Claire holding champagne glasses and a suppressed pistol. They shot me, transferred the bonds to a Cayman account, and planned to stage my death as a tragic car accident on my way to a wellness retreat. The bathroom door clicked open, shattering my reverie. Nathan walked out, a towel wrapped low around his waist, water dripping from his dark hair. He looked like the perfect husband, charming, a man I had loved for 5 years. Now looking at him, all I felt was absolute chilling revulsion. "Morning, darling," he murmured, leaning in to kiss my forehead. "You're up early." "Nightmares," I replied, forcing my vocal cords to remain steady. I even managed a weak smile. "I dreamt I lost everything." Nathan chuckled, adjusting his watch, a $40, 000 Patek Philippe I bought for his birthday. "Impossible. You're a Sterling. You own half the city, and you have me to protect the other half." "Not anymore," I thought. As soon as Nathan left for the office, I sprang into action. Grief and trauma were luxuries I could not afford right now. I had a fortune to secure and a trap to set. I bypassed my usual driver and took a yellow cab to a discreet building on Wall Street, marching straight into the private office of Philip Grant, my family's oldest and most ruthless wealth manager. "Vivian," Philip said, raising an eyebrow over his tortoiseshell glasses. "I wasn't expecting you. Is there an emergency with the quarterly reports?" "Philip, I need to move everything," I said, my voice dropping to a deadpan whisper. "Every single liquid asset, every stock portfolio, every trust fund under my direct control. I want it funneled out of the country by Friday." Philip paused, his pen hovering over his notepad. "Everything, Vivian. We are talking about billions of dollars. Moving that kind of capital so aggressively will trigger alarms. The tax implications alone, I don't care about the taxes," I interrupted, leaning over his mahogany desk. "If I don't move this money, I am going to die." That got his attention. Philip had known my grandfather. He knew the Sterling women were not prone to hysteria. He locked his office door, pulled the blinds, and sat back down. "Tell me exactly what we are doing," he instructed. Over the next 4 hours, we dismantled the financial architecture of my marriage. We set up an irrevocable blind trust in Liechtenstein under a dummy corporation named Phoenix Holdings. We initiated the sale of my majority shares in the domestic tech firms, funneling the profits directly into encrypted offshore accounts. Crucially, I turned my attention to the joint accounts I shared with Nathan. Nathan came from a middle-class background. His entire lifestyle, the tailored suits, the sports cars, the country club memberships, was funded by my supplementary credit cards. I didn't cancel them. That would tip him off. Instead, I lowered the limits drastically, tying them to a heavily leveraged holding account. If he tried to make a massive withdrawal, the transaction would pend for 30 days. "What about the marital estate in the Hamptons?" Philip asked. His name is on the deed alongside yours. Take out a maximum equity line of credit against it, I commanded. Pull all the cash out and transfer it to the Liechtenstein Trust. Leave the house drowning in debt. When the time comes, Nathan will be legally responsible for half a mortgage he can never hope to pay. Leaving Philip's office, I felt the first rush of genuine adrenaline. I wasn't just surviving, I was orchestrating a masterpiece. 2 days passed. The calendar flipped to May 12th. The tension in my chest was a coiled spring, but outwardly, I was the picture of an oblivious adoring wife. I needed to know exactly why Nathan and Claire had chosen this specific week to stage the kidnapping in my past life. To find out, I hired Detective Owen Shaw, a former MI6 operative turned private investigator, who charged exorbitant fees for absolute discretion. We met in the dimly lit back room of a Brooklyn diner. Owen slid a thick manila envelope across the sticky table. Your husband has been a very busy man, Mrs. Sterling, Owen said, his British accent clipping the edges of his words. I opened the envelope. Dozens of high-resolution photos spilled out. Nathan and Claire dining at exclusive restaurants. Nathan buying Claire a $200,000 diamond necklace, charged to my secondary account. Naturally, and most damning of all, photos of them entering a seedy underground club in Queens. An affair is boring, I muttered, flipping through the images of their intertwined hands. Tell me what I don't know. Owen tapped a photograph of a large scarred man standing outside the Queen's Club. That is Dominic Russo. He runs an illegal high-stakes baccarat ring. It seems your husband and his mistress have a gambling problem, a very severe one. I looked up, pieces of the puzzle snapping into place. How much do they owe? $18 million. Owen replied flatly. And Dominic isn't a bank. He doesn't send collection notices. He sends men with hammers. Your husband's deadline to pay the principal is next Wednesday, May 17th. A cold smile crept onto my face. Next Wednesday, the day after the staged kidnapping. The $50 million in ransom I had provided in my past life wasn't just to steal from me. It was to save their own pathetic lives from Dominic Russo, leaving them with $32 million to live happily ever after. Perfect. I breathed. Owen, I have a new job for you. It requires a burner phone, some audio manipulation, and a flight to London. By Friday, May 14th, the trap was fully set. I had legally severed every financial artery connecting Nathan to my actual wealth. To keep him complacent, I casually mentioned over dinner that I was restructuring some assets to increase our liquidity for a surprise investment I was planning for our anniversary. The greed that flashed in his eyes made my stomach turn, but I smiled sweetly and poured him more wine. Actually, darling, I said, swirling my Pinot Noir, I have to fly to London on Monday, an emergency board meeting with the European executives. I'll only be gone for 2 days. Nathan's hand froze slightly on his fork. Monday was the 16th, the day he planned to execute the kidnapping plot. I could see the gears turning in his head, recalculating the logistics. London? He asked, feigning disappointment. But I was hoping we could spend Monday evening together. Claire has been working so hard. I was going to give her the day off and we could just be alone. I'm sorry, Nathan. I lied effortlessly. But I'll be reachable by phone the entire time. You know I always keep my phone on for you. That was the green light he needed. If I was in London, I couldn't physically verify the kidnapping. I would have to rely entirely on his frantic phone calls, making it even easier for them to manipulate me into wiring the money, directly sparing them the effort of a physical ransom drop. Saturday and Sunday were agonizing exercises in patience. I packed my Louis Vuitton trunks, ensuring I packed all my irreplaceable family heirlooms, my grandmother's pearls, the original deeds to the Sterling estates, the vintage watches. Nathan, completely blinded by his impending payday, didn't notice a thing. He even helped me carry the bags down to the foyer. On Monday morning, May 16th, I kissed my husband on the cheek at the front door. Have a safe flight, Vivian, he said softly, his hands resting on my shoulders. Call me when you land. I will. I promised. Take care of everything here, Nathan. I stepped into the waiting town car. As the vehicle pulled away, I watched Nathan turn back into the house, pulling his phone from his pocket, no doubt texting Claire to initiate the final phase of their deadly game. I didn't go to the airport. My driver, vetted and paid handsomely by Owen, took me to a private, heavily guarded estate in upstate New York, owned by a trusted family friend. I walked into the study, poured myself a glass of aged scotch, and set my phone on the desk. At exactly 2 p.m. the phone began to vibrate. Nathan. Mobile. In my past life, this was the moment my heart stopped. This was the moment I answered, heard his fake, terrified sobbing, and threw my life away for a monster. I stared at the screen as it buzzed, flashing his name over and over. I picked up the phone. I didn't answer. Instead, I pressed the power button, holding it down until the screen went entirely black. I tossed the dead device into the burning fireplace. Let Dominic Russo collect his debts, I thought, raising my glass to the flames. The bank of Vivian Sterling is permanently closed. Silence is the most deafening sound when you are waiting for a trap to snap shut. Tucked away in that secure upstate sanctuary, I poured myself a second glass of scotch and booted up the encrypted laptop Owen Shaw had left for me. The screen flickered to life, displaying a highly classified multi-screen surveillance feed of my own Manhattan penthouse, along with live audio intercepts of Nathan's mobile phone. I settled deep into the leather armchair, watching the feed like a hawk. At 2:05 p.m. Nathan paced back and forth in our grand foyer, the phone pressed tightly to his ear. Through the audio feed, I heard the automated voicemail tone. He cursed, a sharp, ugly sound, and dialed again. Nothing. By 2:30 p.m. the pacing had turned frantic. He was supposed to have me on the hook by now. He was supposed to be feeding me lies about a bruised and battered Claire, crying into the receiver, begging for the $50 million to save her life. Instead, he was met with the absolute void. At 3:15 a.m. his phone rang. He snatched it up. Desperate. Vivian. Nathan. It's me. Claire's voice hissed through the speaker, tight with anxiety. What's happening? Did you wire the funds to the Caymans? Dominic just texted me a picture of my apartment door. He's outside. We need to initiate the transfer now. She's not answering. Nathan spat, running a trembling hand through his perfectly styled hair. The phone is going straight to voicemail. I called British Airways. They confirmed she boarded the flight to Heathrow, but she hasn't checked into the Savoy. I can't reach her. Claire. I don't know where she is. What do you mean you don't know where she is? Claire shrieked, her carefully cultivated professional demeanor shattering entirely. Nathan, we owe Dominic $18 million by Wednesday night. If we don't have that money, he's going to cut my fingers off. And then he's coming for your knees. Use the joint accounts. You have the platinum cards. Just pull the cash advance. Are you insane? Nathan snapped. Cash advances cap at $100,000. And that will flag the fraud department at Chase. But wait, the Hamptons property. A sickeningly hopeful tone entered his voice. We have the joint line of credit on the estate. It's authorized for up to $10 million in emergency liquid capital. I'll drain it, wire it to the Caymans, and we can use it to pay off Dominic. It's not the $50 million, but it will buy us our lives. I smiled, taking a slow sip of my scotch. Go ahead, darling. Try. The next morning, Tuesday, May 17th, the eve of Dominic Russo's deadly deadline, Nathan marched into the polished marble lobby of the Wells Fargo private bank on Wall Street. Thanks to Owen's relentless tracking, I had a front row seat to the audio feed from Nathan's smartwatch microphone. Mr. Sterling, greeted Brendan Walsh, the senior account manager. How can I help you today? Brendan, I need an immediate expedited wire transfer. Nathan demanded, projecting the false confidence of a billionaire. I am activating the equity line on the Hamptons property, $7 million. I need it routed to this offshore routing number within the hour. Keys clacked over the audio feed. A long, agonizing pause stretched between the two men. I apologize, Mr. Sterling, Brendan said, his voice dropping into a tone of professional confusion. But I cannot authorize this. Excuse me, Nathan's voice spiked in pitch. I am a joint owner of that estate. My wife is Vivian Sterling. Do you know who she is? Authorize the transfer, or I'll have your job. Sir, I am well aware of who your wife is, Brendan replied, his tone chilling considerably. But Mrs. Sterling executed a full withdrawal against that specific equity line 4 days ago. The account is completely overdrawn. In fact, due to the massive leverage applied to the property, the estate is currently severely underwater. There is no equity left to draw from. What? Nathan gasped. The sound of his rapid breathing filled my headphones. That's impossible. Check the joint checking accounts, the primary liquidity reserves. More clacking. Mr. Sterling. The primary joint accounts were restructured on Friday. The balances were transferred to a corporate blind trust in Liechtenstein, authorized solely by Mrs. Sterling's signature. Your supplementary credit limits have been reduced to $500, and there is a mandatory 30-day hold on any transaction over $200. Where is my money? Nathan slammed his fists on the desk, abandoning all pretense. It is not your money, sir, Brendan said icily. It is Sterling money. And right now, your accessible net worth at this institution is exactly negative $12 million. I must ask you to lower your voice, or I will call security. Nathan stumbled out of the bank. I listened as he hyperventilated on the bustling New York sidewalk, dialing Claire's number with shaking fingers. Claire. He choked out, tears evident in his voice. She took it. She took everything. The accounts are empty. The house is mortgaged to hell. I have nothing. We have nothing. You useless bastard. Claire screamed into the phone. The love, the passion, the grand romance they had shared while plotting my murder evaporated in a millisecond, replaced by the feral panic of cornered rats. You promised me. You said she was a stupid, trusting cash cow. Dominic's men are going to kill us. I'm not dying for you, Nathan. I'm going to the police. I'm going to tell them you staged a kidnapping and stole from her. You can't, Nathan pleaded. You're an accessory. Watch me, she snarled, and the line went dead. I closed the laptop, a profound sense of peace washing over me. In my previous life, I died agonizing over how I had failed them. I died believing I wasn't fast enough, smart enough, or rich enough to save the people I loved. Watching them tear each other apart for scraps of survival was the most exquisite vindication I could ever ask for. But I wasn't done yet. Wednesday night arrived with the inevitability of a storm. May 17th. I remained in my upstate fortress, but Owen had positioned a discreet surveillance team outside my Manhattan penthouse. Nathan hadn't slept in 2 days. He had barricaded himself inside the apartment, hoping the doormen and the building's biometric security would keep Dominic Russo at bay. He clearly underestimated the Russian mob's ingenuity. At exactly 11 p.m. the security feed showed 4 men in tailored suits bypassing the service elevators. They didn't pick the lock. They brought the building's night manager up with them at gunpoint, forcing him to override the penthouse security system. The heavy oak doors swung open. Through the hidden cameras in the living room, I watched as Dominic's lead enforcer, a hulking man named Leo, stepped onto the imported Persian rug. Nathan backed away, terrified, knocking over a crystal vase that shattered into 1,000 pieces. Nathan, Leo said, smoothly peeling off his leather gloves. You missed our deadline. Dominic is very disappointed. I have the money, Nathan lied, holding up his hands. My wife, Vivian Sterling, she's a billionaire. She's just out of town. Give me 3 more days. Just 3 days, I swear I can get you double. Leo sighed, stepping forward and delivering a brutal, calculated punch to Nathan's abdomen. Nathan collapsed, vomiting onto the rug. We know all about your wife. Nathan. Leo crouched down, grabbing him by the hair. We also know she emptied your accounts and vanished. You're broke. You're a parasite who lost his host. What about Claire? Nathan wheezed, desperate to deflect the violence. Take her. She owes you, too. Claire tried to flee to Canada this afternoon, Leo said calmly. Dominic's associates intercepted her bus in Albany. She is currently working off her debt in a very unpleasant shipping container yard in Newark. It will take her about 40 years to pay us back. As for you, Leo gestured to his men. Strip the place. Take the watches. The art. The electronics, everything that isn't nailed down. You can't do this. Nathan cried. Spitting blood. This is a sterling property. Not anymore. Leo laughed. The bank posted a foreclosure notice downstairs an hour ago. You don't own this place. You don't own the clothes on your back. For the next hour, I watched as they methodically dismantled the luxurious life Nathan had so smugly enjoyed. They took the Patek Philippe watch right off his wrist. They took the bespoke Italian suits from his closet. When they were done, Leo dragged Nathan to the front door and kicked him out into the hallway, leaving him bruised, bleeding, and entirely penniless. If you go to the cops, we kill you, Leo promised, tossing Nathan's wallet, now completely empty, onto his chest. Consider the $18 million a lesson. Now disappear, Nathan, because if Dominic ever sees your face in New York again, you won't live to regret it. I closed the live feed for the final time. The game was over. I had won. 4 weeks later, the headlines of the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times read identically. Heiress Vivian Sterling returns from seclusion. Uncovers massive corporate fraud by husband. I walked into the towering glass headquarters of Sterling Enterprises, flanked by a team of New York's most vicious divorce attorneys. I wore a tailored crimson suit, projecting absolute power and undeniable control. The press cameras flashed wildly as I held a brief, perfectly choreographed press conference in the lobby. It is with a heavy heart that I announce the dissolution of my marriage, I told the reporters, maintaining a stoic, brave expression, while I was attending a private spiritual retreat in Europe, conducting a deep audit of our family's charitable trusts. My legal team discovered severe financial discrepancies. My soon-to-be ex-husband, Nathan, engaged in catastrophic, illegal gambling and infidelity, attempting to embezzle millions from the Sterling estate. The reporters shouted questions, hungry for the scandal. Did he steal the money? Mrs. Sterling, where is he now? Fortunately, I said, offering a tight, resilient smile. Our internal safeguards caught the breach before any lasting damage could be done. As for Nathan's current whereabouts, I have no idea. My attorneys have filed for divorce in absentia. I wish him the best in his future endeavors, whatever they may be. The truth was, I knew exactly where Nathan was. Owen Shaw, always thorough to the very end, sent me a final dossier later that afternoon. I sat in my sprawling corner office, looking out over the breathtaking skyline of Manhattan, and opened the file. The photographs inside were starkly different from the glamour shots of his affair with Claire. Nathan was living in a rat-infested weekly motel in the darkest corner of Camden, New Jersey. He looked 10 years older. His face gaunt, his hair unkempt and greasy. He was working the graveyard shift at a grimy 24-hour diner, scrubbing grease off flat-top grills for minimum wage under the table, too terrified of Dominic Russo's men to use his real social security number. He jumped at every loud noise. He checked over his shoulder every time a black sedan drove past the diner's windows. He was trapped in a perpetual nightmare of paranoia, debt, and absolute poverty. And Claire, she was worse off. Owen's report indicated she was stuck in a windowless warehouse in the industrial district sorting counterfeit goods for the syndicate, chipping away at a debt she would never mathematically clear. The beautiful, arrogant assistant who had shot me in the chest while laughing was now nothing more than a ghost, entirely owned by the very monsters she had tried to pay off with my money. I walked over to the floor-to-ceiling windows, pressing my hand against the cool glass. The city below moved like a river of gold and light. I had been given a second chance at life, a rare and miraculous opportunity to rewrite my own ending. I didn't waste it. I didn't just survive the betrayal, I weaponized it. I picked up my phone and dialed Philip Grant's number. Vivian. Philip answered promptly. The Liechtenstein funds have been completely integrated back into the primary corporate accounts. You are more liquid now than your grandfather ever was. What's our next move? There's a tech startup in Silicon Valley, I said. A genuine, powerful smile finally breaking across my face. They specialize in biometric security and encrypted communications. I want a hostile takeover. Philip, let's buy the whole damn thing. Consider it done, he said. I hung up the phone and looked back out at the city. Nathan and Claire thought they could play God with my life. They thought they could cast me aside and take my throne. Instead, they handed me the keys to my own absolute liberation. They could rot in the squalor they created for themselves, living every day in fear, knowing they had held the world in their hands and threw it away. As for me, I am Vivian Sterling. I am alive. I am untouchable. And my reign has only just begun.